The soft glow of the monitor cast a familiar light across my face as I finalized the Q3 report. It was 7 p.m., the exact time Mark usually walked through the door after his late-night coding sessions. But this time, he wouldn't dot. My name is Olivia Hayes, and for 12 years I believed I had the kind of life people admired. A thriving career as a project manager at a leading tech giant, a beautiful modern condo in the heart of Seattle. And a husband, Mark, who was not just my partner, but my intellectual equal. He was the brilliant software developer, the quiet genius who could bring any concept to life, and I was the orchestrator. The one who meticulously planned, organized, and guided our projects from abstract ideas to tangible success. We were a formidable team, always on the same page, always pushing boundaries. We didn't have children, but our projects, our shared professional triumphs, felt like our legacy. Life just flowed as if we were two perfectly synchronized gears in a complex machine. But what I didn't know, what I was about to find out, was that our machine had hidden components, and one of them was concealed within a digital space I had never been allowed to access. Mark died on a Tuesday. They said it was a sudden massive heart attack brought on by stress and an underlying condition he never revealed. I remember the police officer's grave face as he delivered the news. Kind, formal, detached. He went quickly, he said. I nodded like I understood, like it made any difference. But it didn't. Not when you've just lost the only person you thought knew you truly understood the intricate workings of your mind. The memorial service was a blur of dark suits, polite condolences, and unfamiliar faces telling me how wonderful, how visionary my husband had been. I clung to Sarah, my closest friend from college, who kept handing me water I didn't drink and food I couldn't swallow. It wasn't until my sister Chloe arrived, her designer perfume to cloying, her hug too perfunctory, that something shifted within me. I'm so sorry, Liv, she whispered, her voice just a bit too smooth. Mark was like a brother to me. I wanted to believe her. I really did, but something in the way she looked at MIT wasn't grief. It was something else, something I couldn't quite place. Later that evening, as she poured herself an expensive single malt in my kitchen, she said, "Hey, I know it's not the time, but Mark loaned me some seed money for my startup. I was hoping to get that settled now that you're taken care of." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "What money?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She blinked, then smiled, a saccharine expression that made my skin crawl. "Oh, I guess he never told you. Typical Mark, always so private about his investments." Something inside me twisted, a cold, hard knot of unease. That night, sleep was an impossible dream. I kept walking through our minimalist condo, touching the sleek surfaces, the custom-built furniture, the framed photos of our shared projects that suddenly felt like they belonged to strangers. My mind kept replaying Chloe's words, her subtle smirk. My eyes fell on Mark's work laptop, still sitting on his desk. I hesitated, then picked it up. His professional life was always meticulously compartmentalized, separate from our personal one. I respected that, never prying, never seeking access to his company files or private drives. That was our understanding: trust, space, mutual respect. But now I had nothing left to lose. I powered on the laptop, my fingers trembling slightly as I typed his familiar password. It opened instantly. I navigated through his organized desktop, looking for something, anything that felt out of place. Most folders were standard work files, code, client presentations. But then I saw it, a single unmarked USB drive tucked almost hidden in a rarely used port on the side of his monitor. I had never seen it before. My hand reached for it, pulling it free with a soft click. It was heavier than it looked, solid, almost industrial. I inserted it into my own laptop, the familiar worry of the drive engaging. A single folder appeared on my screen. MH, private. My heart pounded against my ribs. I opened it. It wasn't just code or personal documents. It was a shrine, too. A life I never knew existed, intricately woven with threads of my own. My eyes scanned the contents. Project proposals, detailed strategic plans, innovative software architecture designs. All of them meticulously laid out, complete with timelines, resource allocations, and budget breakdowns. My breath hitched. These weren't Mark's. They were. Mine, every single one. Ideas I had pitched, concepts I had painstakingly developed over months, even years. Proposals I had spent sleepless nights perfecting, only to have Mark present them to the board as his vision with a brief, dismissive nod to my invaluable support team. Here they were, complete with my original flowcharts, my distinctive naming conventions, my unique problem-solving approaches. But every document, every slide, every line of code presented as a product prototype bore Mark's name prominently displayed, sometimes with subtle, almost imperceptible tweaks too. Make them appear entirely his own. It was a systematic, calculated appropriation of my entire creative output, spanning years. For 12 years, I had poured my intellect and energy into my role as a project manager. Believing in the power of collaboration, of bringing brilliant minds together to forge something new. My job wasn't just about managing timelines. It was about shaping ideas, nurturing concepts, translating abstract visions into tangible, impactful realities. I was the architect of efficiency, the engineer of innovation, the quiet force that ensured every complex project at our tech giant reached its full potential. Mark, with his dazzling coding skills and charismatic presentations, was the public face. I was the detailed mind behind the scenes, the one who meticulously crafted the strategies, streamlined the processes, and troubleshoot the unforeseen roadblocks. I believed we were complementary, two halves of a whole, each essential to our shared success. I remember countless late nights in the office, the glow of my monitor reflecting in my tired but exhilarated eyes as I perfected a new project proposal, a revolutionary AI algorithm for data analytics, a seamless user interface for a complex software suite, a groundbreaking strategy for market penetration in a new sector. These were my babies, conceived in my mind, nurtured through countless iterations, polished until they gleamed. Mark would then take these meticulously prepared presentations, add a few lines of his eloquent prose, and deliver them to the board with an effortless charm that always garnered applause. He always acknowledged the incredible team or my brilliant project leads, but the credit, the vision, the headlines always belonged to Mark Hayes and his groundbreaking work. I told myself it didn't matter. Not truly. Our firm was thriving. Our shared life was stable. And I implicitly trusted Mark's grander strategy, his promises of a future where my quiet contributions would ultimately be recognized, eventually. I chose to believe in his narrative, in the stability he represented, in the comfort of our meticulously organized existence. My mother-in-law, Suzanne, reinforced this narrative with quiet, insidious regularity. "Mark is the brains of the operation, dear," she'd often say, her tone saccharine sweet, yet razor sharp. "You're so good at organizing his genius, he simply thrives with your support." She saw me not as an equal partner, but as a superior administrative assistant, a skilled facilitator to her son's undeniable brilliance. I swallowed the slight, the casual dismissal of my intellectual contributions. I was used to it. I was the pragmatic one, the one who focused on getting things done, not on seeking accolades. I had a deep, unwavering hope that my dedication, my quiet perseverance would eventually speak for itself. I had invested my entire self into this life, this partnership, this carefully constructed silence. All for a shared future I desperately believed in. I was the silent engine, constantly hoping that my efforts, my loyalty, my unwavering faith would one day earn me the full, unvarnished truth. Looking back, The signs were there. Subtle whispers I chose to ignore, or perhaps rationalize away. The encrypted files on his work server I was never to touch. His insistence on handling every single financial detail, every investment, every offshore account. Dismissing my questions with vague assurances about complex market strategies. The way he'd occasionally disappear for intensive coding sprints in cities I'd never heard of. Returning with vague stories and an air of quiet exhaustion that I attributed to the immense pressure of his visionary work. I dismissed it all as the burdens of a highly successful, intensely private man. I was too busy creating, too busy believing in the perfect facade we presented to the world. I had been so utterly confident in the foundation of our life, never once questioning the quiet spaces he marked as off-limits. I was the silent workhorse, constantly hoping that my efforts, my loyalty, my unwavering faith would one day earn me the full, unvarnished truth. And then, in a subfolder labeled Miscellaneous Assets, I found a short video file dated just 3 months ago. My finger hovered over the play button, a cold dread creeping into my stomach. I clicked. The screen flickered to life. It was Mark. But not the Mark I knew. He was laughing, a free, unburdened laugh I hadn't heard in years, standing in a vibrant, bustling park. Beside him was a woman, younger than me, with bright, intelligent eyes and a cascade of dark, curly hair. And clinging to his hand, a boy no older than 10, his face a smaller, youthful version of Mark's, beaming up at him. They looked like a family, a complete, happy family. My world tilted on its axis. On that very day, I had been in our condo, finalizing a complex project proposal that Mark was to present the following week. Believing I was contributing to our shared future, and here he was, living an entirely separate life. Building another reality. There was a caption at the bottom of the video. A single line of text in Mark's familiar, precise font. Liam, our next-gen coder. July 2024. Liam, their son. My stomach turned a nauseating mix of betrayal and disbelief. 12 years. 12 years I had stood by him, built a life, a career, a future with him. And now the man I buried wasn't my husband. Not really. He was a stranger. A stranger who had looked me in the eye the night before he died, kissed my forehead, and told me, "You're the only one who truly understands my vision." I staggered back from the laptop, a strangled gasp escaping my lips. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, my mind spinning. What was I supposed to do with this? Who even was I now? A widow, yes, but of whom? Just as the full weight of the revelation crashed down on me, I heard it. A faint click from the hallway, then hesitant footsteps. My heart slammed against my ribs. I turned around fast, and standing in the open doorway was Chloe. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, scanning the room, then falling on my laptop screen. My private, hidden betrayal now exposed to her. My pulse pounded in my ears, too loudly to really absorb her words at first. "Olivia?" she whispered. "What's going on?" I didn't answer. I just stared at her, her presence a jarring intrusion into the raw, gaping wound of my discovery. She stepped inside slowly, her gaze lingering on the glowing screen, then shifting to my face. Her voice was calm, too calm, when she spoke again, almost detached. "I thought you might find something eventually." I stared at her, not just seeing her, but searching. Her eyes, they were too knowing. Her silence, it said more than words ever could. "You knew?" I finally managed to whisper. "Yes," Chloe replied without hesitation. "And I'm sorry you had to find out like this." "How long?" My voice was barely a breath. "A long time," she said, no trace of apology. "He didn't tell me much, only that he had a private life, that you didn't know about it. He kept us very separate." Liam's mother respected that. She never wanted to interfere. But after she passed away 2 years ago, things changed. Passed away, so now she was gone too. Just like Mark. I sank onto the couch, my legs unable to hold me. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice raw. "Why now?" Chloe reached into her purse, pulling out a small folded document yellowed at the edges. She held it out. I hesitated before taking it. "It's a draft of a partnership agreement," she said. "Unfinished, unofficial. Mark gave it to me a week before he died. He said the official one would go to you, but this was just in case." I unfolded the paper. Mark's handwriting, steady and familiar, looped across the page. It wasn't notarized, just scribbled lines detailing revenue. Shares from undisclosed projects. Mention of Chloe, a reference to a shell company I'd never heard of. Quantum Solutions, Inc. And one more thing. Access to remaining documents secured in private cloud server. Login link to personal item gifted to O. I froze. Personal item. Gifted to me, the necklace. The sapphire necklace he gave me just 2 nights before he died. That wasn't just a gift. It was a key. I touched my collarbone instinctively, though the necklace wasn't there. I had left it at home, tucked in its box because it felt too heavy to wear. Now it felt even heavier. "What is Quantum Solutions, Inc.?" I asked, scanning the document. Chloe took a breath. "It's one of his private ventures, not public, not on paper. He used it to move money from his, shall we say, unconventional projects. After Liam's mom died, he started digging. There were transfers. I couldn't trace offshore accounts in Liam's name I never opened. My mouth went dry. Why? Because he knew time was running out," Chloe said quietly. "And because he didn't trust the people he worked with." I looked up. "What people?" Chloe's face darkened. "He never said names, only that if something happened to him, someone would come looking for information, for leverage, for what he left behind." I leaned back, my thoughts racing. A secret agreement, company I'd never heard of. A necklace that might hold a code. And a man I had loved for 12 years, who'd built an entire world outside of me. "This is just the beginning," I said. "All of it." Chloe nodded. "I think he left things behind, not just for us, but to protect us." I stood slowly, my legs still unsteady, and looked around the room one last time. It no longer felt like a place of comfort. It felt like a crime scene, full of evidence and a dire warning. "I need that necklace," I said, my voice barely audible. "Can I come with you?" Chloe asked. "If you'll let me?" I paused, then nodded. This was our story now, whether I wanted it or not. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. The very thought of stepping back into that condo, into the curated illusion of our life, felt suffocating. I needed space to think, to breathe, to process the raw, acidic truth that was now consuming me. I called Sarah. Within 20 minutes, I was on her couch, hands wrapped around a mug of calming tea. The sapphire necklace sat on the coffee table between us, sparkling under the lamplight, a silent, ominous presence, a cold, hard symbol of Mark's ultimate betrayal. Sarah didn't ask questions. She never did. Not until I was ready. And when I finally told her everything about the USB drive, the stolen project ideas, Liam, the secret life, the veiled threats in Mark's document, and Chloe's chilling confession she didn't say, "I told you so." She just whispered, "I'm so sorry," and reached for my hand, a silent anchor in my storm. But I wasn't ready to cry. I wasn't ready to collapse into Sarah's comforting embrace. The tears felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. I needed answers. I needed action. I needed someone to blame, someone to hold accountable for the wreckage of my life. A cold, determined fire was kindling in my gut, replacing the numb shock. So I drove to Suzanne's townhouse. It was a sleek, modern residence in a high-end gated community, one of those exclusive developments with concierge service and private security. Strange for someone who always preached about living within your means. As the security gate opened, the rising anger felt like a physical weight pressing against my chest, demanding release. She opened the door, impeccably dressed in an expensive cashmere robe, a glass of Chardonnay in one hand. Her makeup was flawless. Her hair styled perfectly, as if she were expecting company, completely oblivious to the chaos she helped orchestrate. "Well, if it isn't my grieving daughter-in-law," she said with a smug smile, her eyes assessing, calculating. "Come to inspect the widow's inheritance." Her tone was dismissive, condescending, a subtle jab at my perceived vulnerability. "Tot the crap, Suzanne!" My voice was a low, dangerous growl, barely recognizable to my own ears. "We talk now." I pushed past her, not waiting for an invitation into the minimalist living room. My eyes scanned the pristine space, searching for something, anything, out of place. A framed photo caught my eye, sitting on a polished side table. It was her. And Mark, laughing, raising champagne flutes. The date stamped in the corner made my stomach flip, a sickening lurch. 5 years ago. A time when I was deep into an overseas project, working tirelessly, believing I was building our future. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, pointing at the frame, my finger rigid. Suzanne sauntered over, taking a long sip of her wine, her composure infuriatingly intact. "Oh, that. A company celebration. You were on that big overseas project, remember? Mark insisted I join him for the evening." She said it like it was nothing. Like sharing intimate moments with my husband while I was working. Tirelessly on our projects overseas was completely normal, even expected. "We always got along so well," she added casually. A knowing glint in her eyes, a subtle suggestion of their shared secret. I turned to face her fully, my gaze locked on hers. "How well exactly?" Her smirk faltered, a hairline crack in her perfect facade. "I know about the private projects, Suzanne. Okay. I know about the stolen ideas. Okay. I know about Quantum Solutions, Inc. I know about Liam. Okay." My voice was a steel trap, each word precise, cold. "I know everything. Tell me the rest." Suzanne's eyes narrowed. She walked over to her wet bar, refilled her glass, her movements deliberate, regaining control. Then she turned, setting the glass down, her gaze fixed on mine, her voice soft, almost conspiratorial. "Fine, you want the truth?" She took a deep breath, a theatrical pause. "Mark was frustrated, Olivia. He said your projects, while brilliant, were too safe, too slow. He needed someone with vision, someone who understood true innovation, even if it meant bending a few rules." Her words were a carefully constructed narrative, designed to shift blame, to rationalize betrayal. My brain just shut down. He needed someone to steal from. I whispered, the absurdity of her twisted logic hitting me. "He needed someone to push the boundaries," she corrected, her voice hardening, a ruthless edge emerging. "You were his stability. I was his ambition. And sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet." She finished, her chin lifted defiantly. The slap came before I even registered raising my hand. The sound was sharp, brutal, echoing in the pristine silence of her living room. Suzanne's head snapped to the side, her perfect hair disheveled. Her wine glass shattered on the imported marble floor, shards scattering like shattered illusions. She didn't cry, she didn't yell, just smiled a slow, chilling, triumphant smile that twisted my stomach. "Now there's the real Olivia," she said, her voice a low, mocking whisper. "Not the prim, perfect project manager. The woman who just found out she's been living a lie." I turned away, breathing hard, hands trembling, the adrenaline surging through. "Me? Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, quieter now, the raw fury giving way to a desperate need for understanding. "Because you never would have believed me," she said, her voice regaining its composure, a subtle smugness returning. "You always thought Mark was a saint, and maybe I was jealous of your predictable little life, your perfect little projects. But this wasn't about you. This was about Mark realizing his full potential. And me finally getting what I deserved. From my son." Her words were a chilling revelation, exposing the depths of her self-serving ambition. I shook my head, tears finally blurring my vision. A hot, painful stream. You didn't just take something, you stole everything. She walked closer, her expression suddenly unreadable, her eyes gleaming with a cold satisfaction. Say what you want, but the projects Mark pursued, the ones you know nothing about, they are substantial. And they are mine now, or will be once I sort through his messy affairs. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, to break things, to rewind time. But instead, a cold, hard clarity settled over me. I'll honor what Mark left in his documents, I stated, my voice steady, devoid of emotion. Not for you, for the truth, for what's right. Suzanne blinked, her perfect composure faltering for a split second. Her voice softened for the first time, a hint of desperation creeping in. Do you mean that? I don't know what I mean, I whispered. But I know this. I leave. Now. I walked toward the door, ignoring the glass crunching under my shoes, ignoring her stunned silence. My fingers trembled as I grabbed the handle. I didn't answer because I wasn't sure anymore what to say to a woman so consumed by her own greed. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't bear to step into that condo with its carefully chosen furniture and untouched bed. Each object now a painful reminder of a life built on lies. Instead, I returned to Sarah's, clutching the USB drive in my fist like it might burn a hole through my skin. She didn't ask where I'd been. She just opened the door, looked at my face, and said, "You need sleep." But I couldn't sleep. Not when every room in my mind was crashing inward. The walls of my reality crumbling, revealing the abyss of betrayal beneath. The next morning. The exhaustion was a heavy cloak, but my resolve was sharper than ever. I picked up the phone. Was David Miller, a former colleague of Mark's, a brilliant but eccentric coder who had been unceremoniously dismissed from the company years ago. Mark had always claimed David was unreliable. Now that claim rang hollow, another lie in the symphony of deceit. David had sent me a cryptic email a few days after Mark's death, offering condolences and adding a peculiar line. Mark had more layers than an onion. Some were rotten. It had been innocuous enough at the time, but now it felt like a crucial breadcrumb. I met David at the Daily Bite, a bustling coffee shop known for its strong espresso and vibrant tech startup vibe. He looked older, tired, lines etched around his sharp, analytical eyes. But they still held that familiar gleam of intelligence. I laid out the truth, as much as I dared. The stolen project ideas, the hidden USB, the secret son, the crippling debt, Suzanne's contempt, Chloe's odd, almost knowing behavior. I didn't hold back, detailing the methodical way Mark had appropriated my work. David listened intently, his expression shifting from surprise to grim understanding, his jaw tightening with each new revelation. "I knew it," he finally said, his voice low, almost a whisper, confirming my deepest fears. Mark was always appropriating. He'd take a junior dev's elegant solution, tweak a line of code, and present it as his own breakthrough. He was a master at it. He did it with my breakthrough algorithm for Project Chimera. He took credit, then found a reason to get me fired. His jaw clenched, a muscle twitching. But this is a new level of depravity, selling company data, running black projects. He then revealed his own suspicions. Mark had a private server, not corporate. Something off the books. I always thought he used it for side projects, but given what you've found, he was hiding something big. Something dangerous. He called it his digital vault, said he kept all his real work there. David's words painted an even darker picture. Revealing the true scale of Mark's hidden criminality, the conversation shifted from personal betrayal to professional criminality. A chilling realization. David explained that some of the project ideas Mark had taken credit for, especially those related to data mining and AI algorithms, could have immense value, but also immense legal and ethical implications if used improperly. If Mark was running private ventures with these, especially if they involved offshore accounts and shell companies, then he was definitely playing a dangerous game. A very dangerous game. You think you could access it? I asked my voice. Barely a whisper. The enormity of the task overwhelming me. His private server? David hesitated, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. It would be almost impossible without the right key. But if anyone could, it would be Liam. My heart seized. Liam, Mark's secret son, the child Mark had been grooming. Mark was teaching him, showing him the ropes. Liam is brilliant, a natural. If anyone knows the quirks of Mark's system, it's him. A new, terrifying layer of the deception unfolded. Mark wasn't just exploiting my work. He was grooming his son to be a part of his shadowy world, an innocent pawn in a grand, illicit game. My stomach turned. Then we need to find Liam, I said, my voice firm, infused with a new sense of urgency. And we need to find Mr. Adams, the company lawyer. I felt a shift, a cold, hard determination setting in. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Liam, about stopping the cascade of destruction Mark had left behind. You're not going into this alone, Sarah declared, her voice firm as I prepared to leave for Liam's university. You're going to that campus with backup, Casey insisted on coming, tossing her coat over her shoulder. No one faces down a hidden tech empire by themselves. Her loyalty was a balm to my raw nerves, a solid ground amidst the shifting sand. Liam's university. A sprawling campus with futuristic buildings and a palpable buzz of innovation felt like a world away from my corporate tower. We found Liam in the computer science lab, a bright-eyed young man with a familiar intensity in his gaze. Hunched over lines of complex algorithms scrolling rapidly across his screen. It was a natural, a true prodigy, just as David had described. I introduced myself, explaining that I was Mark's wife, and that I needed his help understanding some of Mark's private projects. He looked wary at first, then intrigued, his youthful curiosity overcoming his initial caution. I showed him the USB drive, the video of him and his mother, the project files that were mine but bore his father's name. Liam's face, initially confused, slowly hardened into a mask of shock and dawning realization. He recognized the code, the patterns, the subtle tweaks that had become Mark's signature. He understood the implications immediately. He told me he was building something big, something just for us. It's a secret project. His voice was barely a whisper, filled with a nascent pain. He said it was too sensitive for the company's servers. The weight of his father's betrayal was settling on his young shoulders. He had a private server, didn't he? David asked, stepping forward, his voice gentle. A digital vault. Liam nodded slowly, his eyes wide, now filled with a disturbing clarity. Yes, he said it was in a private co-working space downtown. He had a key card. He showed me how to access it, just in case anything ever happened to him. His voice trailed off, a profound sadness entering his eyes. He reached into his pocket and handed me a small metallic card. This is the access key. He made me memorize the login. He was meticulous. Said it was crucial. Card felt heavy in my hand. A key not just to data, but to a hidden kingdom of lies. A new, terrifying layer of the deception unfolded. Mark wasn't just exploiting my work. He was grooming his own son to be a part of his shadowy world. An innocent pawn in a grand, illicit game. My stomach turned. This wasn't just about my professional vindication. This was about protecting Liam. About preventing him from being ensnared in the same web of deceit that had consumed his father. Then we need to find Mr. Adams, I said, my voice firm, the company lawyer. It's time to bring this into the light. The co-working space was in a high-rise downtown, It was a sleek, modern environment, all glass walls and cold minimalist furniture, with no personal touches, no photos, no framed memories, just sterile efficiency, a perfect camouflage for hidden operations. Mark had always called it his innovation hub, a place for private collaborations. I never once set foot inside. But now, with Liam's keycard, we were granted access. Walking into the heart of Mark's secret world, Liam led us to a glass-walled office at the far end of the floor. Inside, a single high-spec workstation sat on a minimalist desk. The server is built into the desk, Liam explained, his fingers hovering over a hidden panel. He said it was disguised as a power hub. Slid open the panel, revealing a nest of wires and a small, black, unassuming machine. It hummed softly, a low, constant thrumming sound that vibrated through the silent room. My fingers found the small clasp on the sapphire necklace Mark had given me, a gift now imbued with a sinister purpose. I twisted it counterclockwise. Click. A hidden compartment popped open on the back of the sapphire pendant. Inside, a thin metal plate no larger than a SIM card. Numbers were engraved along the edge. Liam took it carefully and slid it into a slot on the server. Low beep, then a soft whir. The monitor on the desk flickered to life, displaying a single folder. The real projects. The moment was heavy with anticipation, the air thick with the weight of revelation. Inside were stacks of documents, encrypted files, and a single small wooden box. Liam pulled out the documents. Contracts, transfers, financial statements. Some of these names, they're international shell corporations, David said, his voice grim, his eyes wide with a cold fury. He wasn't just hiding money, he was moving it offshore, fast. And these are agreements for highly unethical data collection. He was selling user data on the dark web, Olivia. Our company's data. The scope of Mark's criminality was breathtaking, sickening. I picked up a flash drive but didn't plug it in. Not yet. Then I opened the small wooden box. It was a ring, a simple gold band with a small diamond. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't mine. Inside the band, an inscription. E, always. Not O, not me. E for Alina, Liam's mother. My throat tightened, a sudden sharp ache in my chest. He bought her a ring, I said, my voice barely audible, a profound realization dawning on me. He was going to propose, or maybe he already had. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't cry. Because there, in the cold silence of my dead husband's secret office, I realized the truth I hadn't dared name. He loved her. He might have loved me too in his own way. A comfortable, predictable kind of love, built on routine and shared professional goals. But her, Alina, she got the part of him that was real. It's the part that dared to dream, to take risks, to forge a genuine future. And the rest was a performance. A polished husband with dinner at 7 o'clock, flowers on Sundays, and a digital vault full of secrets, a life I was merely a prop in. Then Liam handed me a letter, folded neatly. My name on the front. I unfolded it with shaking hands. Olivia, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. I'm sorry, never had. The courage to tell you the truth, to say out loud what I should have said years ago. I was selfish. I built 2 lives because I couldn't give up either. And in the end, it cost me everything. I loved you. I know that sounds empty now. Maybe it always was, but I did in the only way I knew how. I wanted you to have peace, too. Be safe. That's why I left you the projects, the access, the truth. Use them how you see fit. Burn them, bury them, or expose it all. It's your choice now. Forgive me if you can. Not, I understand. Mark, I stared at the page until the words blurred, and I passed it to Sarah. She read it silently, her face a mixture of shock and profound sadness, then handed it to David. Liam remained silent, his gaze fixed on the letter. Perhaps understanding his father's complex, conflicted heart more than any of us ever could. None of us asked what to do, because what was there to say? The man we'd all thought we knew had shattered like glass, revealing a grotesque mosaic of lies. And all we could do now was decide what to do with the shards. We left the office in silence. The kind of silence that doesn't come from peace, but from the absence of anything left to say, the exhaustion of too many truths. Sarah drove. Liam sat beside me, and I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur into a palette of autumn gray. My dead husband had lived a life I never touched. Now we were holding the pieces of it in our hands, and we didn't know who else was watching or what else Mark had left behind. That night, as I tried to sleep on Sarah's pull-out couch, my phone rang. Unknown number. Olivia Hayes. A man's voice said, "Yes." I answered, already on edge, every nerve firing. "This is Robert Vance, your late husband's cousin." My stomach dropped. I knew the name. He was a silent partner in some of Mark's seed investments, a man known for his shadowy dealings, his ruthless ambition. "I believe you have something that belongs to me," he said, his voice smooth, like still water, yet laced with an undeniable threat. "The data from the private server, some of it concerns international transfers. Projects I helped set up. I suggest we meet." "I'm not meeting anyone." My voice was steadier than I expected, but my hand trembled slightly as I gripped the phone. "You will," he said, the smoothness evaporating, replaced by a cold menace that sent a shiver down my spine. "Because the other people Mark worked with, they're not as polite as I am. They don't ask, they take." He hung up. The abrupt click echoed in the silent room. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, heart racing, a new, chilling layer of danger unfolding around me. In the morning, I told Liam and David. Liam's jaw clenched as he paced the room, his youthful face etched with a newfound maturity, a grim understanding of the world his father had inhabited. "He contacted me too," he said, his voice tight. "But there's more. Last night, someone else called. Mr. Thorne. He claims he's the original source of the data Mark was selling. He said if we don't return everything by the end of the week, there will be consequences." I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't need to. The implied threat hung heavy in the air. A dark cloud-gathering dot, Liam pulled out the small metallic access card from the server. "We still have the real projects folder," he said, his eyes determined. "Whatever's inside might help explain who really owns what, and the recorded meetings. Maybe there's a confession, a way to clear his name, or at least understand. But do we really want to open another box?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from cracking, the prospect of more horrifying truths almost unbearable. "What if all it does is make things worse?" Sarah sat beside me, her hand warm and firm on my arm. "Then at least you'll know. Not knowing is what's killing you." She was right. The uncertainty, the endless questions were a torment. So we made a plan. First, we'd go to Mr. Adams, the company lawyer. He was old school, trustworthy, and had known Mark for years, though mostly in a professional capacity. He was our best, most legitimate path. Then, if things still didn't make sense, Liam, with his burgeoning tech skills, might be able to trace the IP addresses from the server logs. Digging deeper into Mark's illicit network, we drove back into the bustling downtown core before noon. The corporate law building sat nestled between a high-end restaurant and a historic bank, discreet and unassuming, the kind of place you'd walk by 100 times without noticing until it mattered. Sarah stayed in the car. "Just text if it gets weird," she said, "and if they don't cooperate, cry." Nobody says no to a woman crying at a law firm. Liam even managed a small, strained smile at that, a flicker of his youthful humor. Inside, Mr. Adams, a man with kind eyes and a sharp mind, looked at the access card, checked my ID, and raised an eyebrow. "It's been years since Mark used his. Private access," he said, a hint of surprise in his voice. "He had a secondary encrypted profile. Assumed it was for personal investing, not this." He led us into a secure back office past layers of locked doors and digital security. The air grew colder, the silence thicker, and then we were alone with his secure workstation. He handed me gloves. "Standard procedure," he said. "We'll give you privacy." The door closed behind us. The moment felt surreal, like stepping into a high-stakes espionage thriller. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Ready?" Liam asked, his voice low. "No," I said, my voice firm. "Okay. But I'm doing it anyway." I inserted the USB drive with the small metal plate into the server port. The screen flickered to life. Liam typed the complex login he had memorized, his fingers flying across the keys with an innate skill. The Real Projects folder opened. Inside wasn't just cash or hidden passports. No stacks of untraceable bills. Just one meticulously organized folder labeled Client Data Protocols and a series of audio files marked Meeting Logs. The digital vault held far more damning secrets. Then Money. Liam opened the folder. Dozens of signed agreements, shell company registrations, payoffs, and one document marked Thorn Blackmail Insurance in bold red ink. It wasn't just leverage, it was a loaded gun pointed directly at Mark's criminal associates. "Are kept proof?" I whispered, the realization hitting me with chilling force of everything. He built an entire failsafe. And in that moment, I understood. He hadn't just left me a mess, he'd left me a weapon. Now it was my choice who to aim it at. We didn't go home. It went straight to Mr. Adams' main office. It was the corporate lawyer for the tech giant for years. Straightforward, discreet, and allergic to drama. I told him everything. It's not about Liam being Mark's son. That was a private matter for now. It's a truth too fragile to expose just yet, but the parts that mattered. Legally, the stolen project ideas, the unethical data sales, the threats from Robert Vance and Mr. Thorne, the offshore accounts. He didn't blink, his expression remaining perfectly composed, betraying nothing. "You want to press charges?" he asked, his voice calm, pragmatic. "No," I said, my voice firm, clear. "I want insurance. I want to protect myself, my real work, and anyone else Mark inadvertently put at risk. I want them to stop, permanently." My goal wasn't retribution, but protection. He nodded, a flicker of approval in his eyes. "Then we'll copy everything digitally. Physically, store backups in 3 secure locations. One here, one with you, and one with someone not connected to you or the company." "I know just the person," Sarah said, a grim smile on her face, signaling her unwavering support. We spent hours scanning files, encrypting data, and creating redundant backups. Mark had kept meticulous records, names, dates, wire logs, fake invoices, deep web transaction histories, all meticulously documented. It wasn't just shady business. It was a full-blown criminal enterprise, international in scope. And with Mark gone, Robert Vance and Mr. Thorne thought the evidence had vanished. They were wrong. The digital ghosts of Mark's crimes were now under my control. By the end of the day, Mr. Adams had drafted a simple, precise cease and desist letter. I added one line at the bottom in my own handwriting, a personal signature of defiance. "Try me. O.H." We sent it to Robert Vance's private office via courier, with a copy to Mr. Thorne's last known address. Robert Vance called within 15 minutes. "You think you're clever?" He hissed into the phone, his voice laced with venom. "You're in over your head." "No," I replied calmly, my voice steady, devoid of fear. "You are. Because the next call I make is to the FBI, and after that, the International Cybercrime Unit. Every file, every signature, every transaction log from Mark's private server goes public. You don't want that kind of trouble." There was a long pause, then a choked sound, almost like laughter, but filled with pure, unadulterated venom. "All right," he said, his voice strained, a grudging defeat in his tone. "What do you want?" "Nothing," I said, my voice unwavering. "I want you to stop. No calls, no threats, no late-night warnings. If you touch me or anyone I know, or any of these projects, and the entire folder goes public. Every file, every signature. You don't want that kind of trouble? I already have that kind of trouble, he said, his voice trembling with contained rage. The difference is, I'm not afraid of it anymore. He hung up. The line went dead. 2 hours later, Mr. Thorne called. His tone was different, smooth, polished. Like a man used to charming his way through locked doors, a velvet glove disguising an iron fist. Olivia, he said, like we were old friends, I've heard about your discoveries. I think we're starting off on the wrong foot. There is no foot, I said, my voice cold, sharp. It's just your signature on a dozen illegal data sales and a trail of exploited users. He laughed softly, a chilling, humorless sound. All hypothetical. Of course. I let the silence stretch, allowing the weight of my words to sink in. Then I said, I know you think you can handle this, Mr. Thorne, but here's the thing. I have no reputation to lose, no company to protect in this shadowy world. I have nothing left of the life I knew, and that makes me very, very dangerous. That shut him up. The silence was absolute. I ended the call. Liam, David, and I sat on Sarah's porch that night, the encrypted backup drive in Liam's pocket. A physical copy of the server contents buried in a waterproof container in Sarah's garden shed. Paranoid, maybe, but when you've been lied to by the person you trusted most, paranoia starts to feel like survival. I didn't know he was capable of all this, Liam said quietly, his voice heavy with a new, somber understanding of his father. My mom, she always said he was complicated. But I thought she meant sad, not corrupt. Not this. He was both, I said, staring up at the cold, steady stars above us, and maybe more. But we're not done yet. It's one more thing we haven't opened. Liam frowned. What? The meeting logs, I said, referring to the audio files on the server. The ones he recorded. I think they contain more than just business discussions. I think they contain the rest of the truth. David looked at me, his eyes wide, a silent acknowledgement of the terrifying possibilities. Liam swallowed hard. The audio files were small, unmarked, like they had nothing to say unless you asked the right way. We didn't open them that night. Or the next morning. It took me 2 days. 2 days of preparing myself for whatever truth was still waiting. 2 days of rehearsing my reactions, as if practicing would make betrayal feel any less sharp. Liam sat beside me on the couch. Sarah brought tea again. No one said a word as I plugged in the USB drive with the server access, opened the meeting logs folder, and clicked on the first audio file. Dated just 2 weeks before Mark's death. The screen went black. Then the audio began. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the crackle of the recording. Mark's voice filled the room. Hollow, tired, nothing like his usual confident tone. He was talking to someone, his voice strained, desperate. I can't keep doing this. The risks are too high. Olivia is starting to ask questions about the project expenditures. I need to get out. All of it. The data sales. The shell companies. It's too much. Then a chillingly familiar female voice, smooth and deceptively calm, replied, You can't just walk away, Mark. Not now. Not when we're so close to the big payout. And what about our understanding, our partnership? All those years I covered for you. My heart slowed, a cold dread seeping into my bones. It was Chloe, my sister. Her voice so familiar, now twisted into something unrecognizable, something predatory. Mark's voice, desperate now, pleaded, Chloe, I'm serious. It's the data sales. They're going to be traced. The authorities will connect the dots. And Olivia, she doesn't deserve this. She built half of this company with her bare hands, with her intellect. She deserves the truth, not this wreckage. Chloe laughed, a short, sharp, humorless sound I now recognized too well. Olivia. She's too busy with her ethical projects to notice what's really going on. She's naive. Always has been. And if you try to cut me out, Mark, if you even think about leaving, I'll expose everything. Every single one of your private ventures, every offshore account. Every lie you've told Olivia. And the fact that Liam isn't exactly a secret anymore. You think she'd want to inherit that mess? Your precious reputation will be destroyed. What's left of it? Mark's voice was barely a whisper now, filled with a profound despair. Chloe, you don't understand what you're dealing with? The people involved, they're dangerous. They won't just let you walk away with their secrets. Oh, I understand perfectly, Chloe hissed, her voice oozing contempt. I understand what you owe me. For all those years you paraded your perfect life with Olivia, while I struggled. I understand what I deserve. Her words were a torrent of long-simmering resentment. Now unleashed. Then Mark's voice broken, defeated, a single tear escaping my eye as I heard the raw pain in his tone. And Alina. What about Alina's projects? Her data? Her accident? Chloe's voice was cold, flat, utterly devoid of emotion. She was never part of the long-term plan, Mark. A momentary distraction. Her projects were just collateral damage. And her accident? Well, sometimes things just happen, don't they? A faulty brake line. No witnesses. No foul play. Just a tragic car accident. The words hung in the air, a chilling, deliberate explanation. The room went completely still. Sarah covered her mouth, her eyes wide with horror, a silent gasp escaping her lips. Liam's fists clenched, his face a mask of dawning, gut-wrenching pain, his youthful innocence shattering with each word. Elena's accident. The car crash. Single vehicle, no witnesses. They said the brakes failed, but Liam's mother had the car serviced the day before. Mark had mentioned it briefly, a casual comment, but now it's filtered through Chloe's chilling words. It took on a sinister, undeniable meaning. She knew she was involved. I tried to make it right, Mark's voice concluded, raw with regret. A profound weariness in every syllable. I moved the money, created backups, made sure that if something happened to me, Olivia, would have the power to expose it all. I'm sorry. So deeply sorry it took this much damage for me to finally do the right thing. He paused, a ragged breath. I was weak. But you, Olivia? You're not. And if you want to walk away from all of this, do it. Take what's yours and leave them in the dust. But if you don't, if you decide to fight back, don't do it alone. The audio clicked off, the screen cut to black. The silence that followed was deafening, suffocating. I sat there unmoving for what felt like hours. The echo of Mark's broken voice and Chloe's chilling confession replaying in my mind. He knew. He knew what Chloe was capable of. He knew what was coming. And still, he tried to control the narrative, even in death. Perhaps out of guilt. Perhaps out of a twisted sense of protection. But now he'd handed me the truth. All of it. And it was time to decide what to do with it. Chloe didn't know I'd heard the audio. Not when I invited her to brunch. Not when I hugged her at the door, a brief cold embrace, and said how much I missed her, how we should talk like real sisters again. She smiled like a woman who thought she'd won, her eyes sparkling with a cold triumph. She wore a pale pink silk blouse, a subtle nod to the new money she now enjoyed. Money stolen from my life, from Mark's illicit dealings, perhaps even from Elena. I'm glad we're doing this live, she purred. It's been too long. We sat on the porch of Sarah's house, the crisp autumn air a stark contrast to the heat of my fury. Liam stayed inside with David, their presence a silent support. Sarah poured sweet tea, her gaze watchful, then left us alone, understanding the gravity of the impending confrontation. I'm glad you reached out, Chloe said, folding her hands neatly on her lap, feigning sisterly warmth. I was worried you were angry. Why would I be angry? I asked softly, my voice calm, almost detached, a mask perfectly fitted over the raging storm inside me. Because my husband was stealing my ideas and secretly plotting with my sister? Or Because he left you part of his ill-gotten gains? Chloe blinked. That was the first crack, a momentary flicker of fear in her eyes. Her feigned composure shattered. She shifted in her seat, discomfort radiating from her. Olivia, this is hard for both of us. Mark was confused, torn, but he loved you. She tried to cling to the illusion, to soften the edges of her betrayal. No. My voice was a steel wire, taut and unyielding, devoid of any emotion. He didn't love me, he pitied me, and he feared you. Her face stilled, all pretense dropping. I placed the USB drive with the audio files between us on the small table. The little black device, seemingly innocuous, pulsed with the weight of her crimes. Chloe's lips parted just slightly, a silent gasp. I know about the private ventures, the data sales, the manipulation. I know he was planning to cut you out, and I know about Elena. My words were a hammer blow, striking at the core of her carefully constructed lies. She didn't blink, she didn't move. Her eyes, now cold and hard, met mine. Her voice was a low, venomous hiss. You can't prove anything. It was an accident. An accident. She clung to the last shred of her innocence, desperate to deny the undeniable. You're right, I replied, my voice steady, unyielding. I don't have to. She frowned, confusion warring with fear in her eyes. I stood up, the movement slow, deliberate, a theatrical flourish. Because I'm not going to court. I'm not going to press charges for everything. I'm not going to fight for some half-baked justice system to fix this. I looked her straight in the eye, my gaze unwavering, filled with a cold, absolute resolve. I'm going to walk away. And leave you here with everything you thought you wanted. The money, the partnerships, the projects, the lies. And your own suffocating loneliness. You will carry this burden, Chloe, not me. You will live with your choices every single day. Chloe stood up too, her face contorted in a mixture of fear, rage, and dawning horror as the true weight of my words registered. You think that scares me? She choked out, her voice ragged. No, I said, my voice steady, a final, unshakable truth. But it will. Then I turned and walked inside, leaving her alone on the porch, shattered amongst the remnants of her deceit. Liam and David were waiting, their faces grim, but with a silent understanding, a quiet nod of approval. The confrontation was over. Its battle for my soul, however, had just begun. Later that afternoon, I met with Mr. Adams again. The weight of the world felt lighter as I handed him the encrypted server data. A signed affidavit outlining Chloe's confessions from the audio logs. And one clear, unwavering instruction. If anything happens to me, it goes to the press. All of it. Every file, every audio log, every damning detail. Her name, Suzanne's name, Robert Vance's, Mr. Thorne's. Everything. He nodded, his face etched with a quiet understanding. My goal wasn't just to survive. It was to ensure that the truth, once uncovered, would never be buried again. Then I went home to the condo I once shared with Mark. It was quiet now, eerily still, purged of the lingering ghosts of his lies. I walked through each room, touching the backs of chairs, the sleek surfaces, the subtle imperfections in the floorboards we never got around to fixing. Each touch was an act of letting go, of disconnecting from a past that was never truly mine. I opened my closet, packed one suitcase, filling it with only the essentials, the items that truly represented me. The rest, the furniture, the expensive art, the memories woven into the walls, I left them. They were not mine to carry forward. When I reached Mark's old desk, I took the USB drive from the monitor, then gently closed the laptop. Not because I was hiding anything, but because I wasn't coming back. My life with him was chapter 1 was closing, definitively. 1 week later, I boarded a flight to Denver. The city unfolded beneath me, a patchwork of glittering lights, a promise of new beginnings. The air was fresh, crisp, carrying the scent of pine and possibility. I found a bright, open loft apartment. downtown, filled with natural light and a sense of boundless potential. No secrets, no hidden projects, no more pretending. It's just me, Olivia Hayes, project manager, survivor, and now independent consultant. The title felt incredibly liberating. I wasn't the woman who was lied to, exploited, and left with broken pieces. I was the one who turned silence into a resounding declaration. Who transformed betrayal into a powerful catalyst for change? My life was no longer a perfectly constructed facade. It was real, raw, and vibrantly authentic. I found immense satisfaction in my new work, consulting with ethical startups, helping them build their visions with transparency and integrity. I regularly met with Liam and David. Liam, with his brilliant mind, was flourishing, pursuing his passion for ethical AI development, free from the shadows of his father's past. We worked on a few small passion projects together, building something new, something honest. Sarah remained my steadfast friend. Her quiet strength, a constant support. Suzanne Hayes found her social standing crumbled. The whispers about Mark's unethical dealings, combined with my quiet, undeniable truth, destroyed her carefully cultivated image. She became a recluse, haunted by the public humiliation and the unraveling of her son's fraudulent legacy. Chloe, stripped of her access and her manipulative leverage, eventually spiraled, her self-serving ambition leading her to nothing but isolation and bitterness. I never heard from her again, nor did I seek her out. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to forgive. My peace was paramount. I had drawn my boundaries, clear and unyielding. My story is not one of tragic loss, but of profound reclamation. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the quiet strength found in the face of overwhelming betrayal. I learned that true value isn't derived from external validation or the approval of others. It comes from within, from the unwavering commitment to your own truth, your own talent, and your own principles. Setting boundaries, even with family, was not an act of cruelty, but an act of fierce self-preservation. It was the only way to protect my space, my work, my peace of mind. And I now believed, with every fiber of my being, that justice, even if delayed, would always find its way to the surface. The truth, like a powerful current, would always break through the strongest dam of lies. My journey taught me that sometimes the loudest statement is made in absolute stillness. The most powerful revenge is simply living your truth, liberated from the very chains that sought to bind you. I am not a victim. I am a survivor. I am the architect of my own destiny, building a life not on lies but on the bedrock of integrity and quiet strength. Have you ever risen after a betrayal? Share your story. You're not alone. Hit like and subscribe if you believe. Sometimes silence is the strongest form of revenge.